Hello and welcome to the Dance of the Soul with Regan Forsten and I, Natasha Venter. We are here to create a new knowing for you for your future because of the fact that we are one that loves to help you go through things. And right now, I don't know where Regan is. Regan is a clinical hypnotherapist with the Newton Institute, and he is a very amazing man. I just spent 6 days in their home just a couple weeks ago, about a week ago now. And, it was amazing to be with this man. He is tremendous. I actually had a hypnotherapy session with him, and I don't necessarily get hypnotized, and he doesn't do it. He just gets you really relaxed. But it was amazing that, he brought me to some awarenesses, even in me, because sometimes, when you need a guided tour of your life, sometimes when someone is guiding you and triggering a moment, it wakes you up to something that you needed to learn. And so I took that as that. So Regan right now is on a trip going down Southern California to do some sessions with him. And I bet you he got trapped in doing something right now. And, he lost track of time like he would do because he's such a kind man that it's hard to call him because it's like he is a kind man. And we both want to talk about, and I'm Natasha Venter. I'm a psychic medium, personal awareness life coach, intuitive Feng Shui consultant. And I love to help people grow and move and mature and set into themselves that they shouldn't sit in shame, that we shouldn't sit in guilt. And when we're going through these stories and these negotiations, that many times when we're working with other people, and that's the thing that we wanted to talk about today, was this discussion about how do you have a conversation with the ones you love, right? And many times it's taking the higher road. Sometimes it's taking a perspective that you don't have to be right. It's sometimes taking a moment where it's in a difference of opinion, right? So with that as we're going forward and that kind of thing, it's amazing how things happen where we're at. And for some reason, I feel like that oh, there's Regan. Hi, Regan. I'm going to clean my screen, my camera right here real quick. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. So here's Regan. And I just was saying how you wonderfully were probably in the middle of something and lost track of time.
No, had everything set up about 40 minutes ago. And then I thought using the computer of the place I'm at right now, had it all figured out. And then I thought, well, I got time to spare. So I clicked on another link to do something else. And then I couldn't get back to where we were. So I just got ran and got my cell phone. So I got my FaceTime or you're talking to you on my cell phone instead of the computer.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
okay.
like it works.
I hear you. It seems like, let's see, who's going into retrograde right now? Uranus is going into retrograde right now. And it feels like Mercury should be in retrograde all of this year with technology and struggles and that kind of stuff. But it hasn't been that way. Now Mercury's going to go into retrograde here in another couple weeks. And if we're already struggling with some of the technology things, we're going to dance a little bit more with it. Luckily, I was born in a retrograde. So for me, retrogrades are a little bit more graceful for me. I kind of slip into my better me sometimes during retrogrades because I was born in the summer of a bunch of retrogrades. So to me, it's like, oh, here I am, me,
Yeah.
So, well, welcome. I was just discussing how that, you were such a gift for me to have a session with, and I was describing that and then describing me. And then I was starting to get into what we were going to talk about partnerships and how to take the higher road. And sometimes we can't take the higher road. We need to take the lower road. And somebody else needs to take the higher road. But yet it's how do we negotiate through some of this walk of partnerships? It doesn't matter if it's male, female, up, down, black, white, purple, green. It doesn't matter who, what, where we are, we all have to deal with relationships, even if it's with a human to an animal, or a human to another human, or a human to a
Right.
machine. Sometimes our machines, our computers and stuff like that, they can take on an entity of emotions and stuff, because we're throwing them at that. We're throwing our emotions at them, so they throw something back at us, which is usually our emotions back at us.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those
Well,
things.
I'm learning the more that we do this work, I'm learning how we all admit there's this energy force that's, goes beyond our body, goes out into the world. And we have to, be very mindful of our thoughts and our deeds, because it all goes out, and usually the negative stuff bounces off something, comes back at us, uh,
Hmm.
which is what happens what I mean when we were talking about taking the higher road. Is this something that came to me about 4 or 5 months ago, in a relationship, and realizing that, being right is, in a loving relationship, when you have to be right, that means you're making somebody wrong. There's like a win or loser, and you want to try to, in relationship, make everything a win-win type situation. So sometimes when you feel like biting back, you have to, like, you just, if you bite, there's going to be bites back and bites, because it's just going to be crazy. And sometimes you just have to go to the bigger picture, and say, wait a minute, what do I want? I want peace here, and I want to take care of things in a good way, not in a bad way. So what keeps me sometimes, like when I feel like it, yeah, I've been wronged or something, and I'm feeling like biting back, then I keep saying higher road, higher road, higher road, and I sit for a minute or something and think, okay, now how can I respond to the situation in something that's going to be positive rather than making it worse, But it's the
Hmm.
hardest thing, when brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, friends or something, they get into this moment where they don't like each other very much. Man, it's easy to go down a deep rabbit hole sometimes. I know of some families where, brother and sister over Thanksgiving dinner had an argument about something they did as a kid, and they didn't talk to each other for years after that, instead of, taking the higher road, calling one of them, calling the other up and say, hey, sorry about that. And let's not ruin our relationship over something that happened 20 years ago. Um,
Exactly.
but some people don't. Some people take the lower road and they stay there, and it causes them so much angst and so much pain, and they don't realize that they're biting themselves, by taking the low road.
Exactly, because how many years of that relationship were lost? Like
Yeah.
going back to that metaphor of, which happens in many people's families. Something happened as a child, and we took it as, you know, the end of all ends. And yes, there's some things that I'm going to say are that way. I mean, there
Yeah.
is, like physical abuse or mental abuse that you
Yeah.
really have to put a boundary up. But at the same time, though, there's some things that were, stealing somebody's candy, and it really got blown out of proportion. And I mean this with love and care, because when we're kids, things are total emotions sometimes, and yet when we're getting to that point where it's like sometimes we have to say, you know what, I'm sorry. Like for me, coming back from my trip, being gone for 3 weeks, my husband and I, and you even made this statement, with your other half, that when you're gone, that sometimes there's a couple days where there's integration of learning each other again.
Yeah.
Like my husband even said, I have to get used to having a wife around. He was on his own for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he's got fire in his signs. He's a Leo, and I'm a Cancerian, so I have water. And so if we're not in good rhythm, we could try to put each other's fire out, and he can try to make my water boil. And
Yeah.
so with
Yeah.
that it does take us a little while to get back into it. So the first night back, we were grateful, and then there was about 2 days in there where it was a conversation, and I came into some big enlightenments on my trip, and I wanted to share them with him, but yet our communication hasn't isn't it's like fire and water too sometimes. And I said something and I triggered him. It was one sentence, two or three words that I said, And to honor him in this conversation, that I wanted to, this is a great example of how, it was just 2 or 3 words and it triggered him, and he could not let it go, and I can understand why, because it's something that he prides himself on. But the way that I was meaning it, the way that I was saying it was, hey, hey, can we just come on the same page? Let's get together on this story. Let's you and I, being the only ones in the house, let's come into some kind of communion together. But no, it was that those few words that really put him in the, and it was like all I could do to get him to even want to talk to me the rest of the day, because he was so triggered. Well, he's going through a lot of stress at work. He's been on edge. I can give him all that. And, you know, I know I didn't say something really wrong, but what I had to do was I had to take the high road.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I triggered you. I did not mean to trigger you. And then finally, after a couple of you know, like a half an hour, 45 minutes, it seemed like forever, that I finally said, you know what, babe, I'm sorry. I'm going to throw in the white flag. Can you throw in the white flag and let's just call this neutral? Because I am so sorry that I triggered you. I had no intention of triggering you. It was just about trying to communicate. And, let's just start this whole thing. Let's start fresh from here, because we couldn't start it over. But can we start fresh from here? Let's throw in the white flag. And luckily he was willing,
Yeah.
and that was part of that relearning each other also, that relearning of communication. And a lot of us don't give that ebb and flow of learning to be with one another after hard days of work. After these things, we take everything seriously from the minute one, that, no, we have to kind of let that integration time after a day's work, after a trip, after these things, to help us ebb and flow into what we can be together. And
Yeah.
you said the same thing with your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. But it's interesting to see how sometimes how that other part of herself wants so bad to be right, wants to get our viewpoint across, that it is, I think in my younger years, I wouldn't have been able to do it as much as I can now, because eventually as you get older, you just don't take things the way you did when you were younger. You're more, I think where our boiling point becomes a lot less, or we don't take a lot of things so serious, or, you get to know somebody in a relationship so much, and you know that most of the time, when they reach out and do something negative to you, you know that they're not really intending it to be for you. In a sense, they're just letting out, and because we're closest to them, we're the closest thing that they can let their energy out on. Don't have to
Mhm.
quite explain that, but um, people need to know that I found out too over trial and error for years, is when you're in a relationship where two people that really love each other, if you don't learn certain skills, it's like, I picture you're standing right, both of you have these beautiful uh, brand new cars, and you're standing right next to them. And if you don't argue right, it's like throwing little pebbles at each other, and they're hitting the car, that you just bought. And so, boom, there's a little nick and a nick. And if you don't learn to fight right, then pretty soon, I mean, you're going down the road, and you look like you're driving jalopies, because you've dinged each other so much. But you don't have to do that. But it takes um, time to sit down with each other, look at each other in the eye, and say, look, when we fight, I love you, and I do not want to damage or hurt you in any way. I may have a point of view or something, and I really want you to hear it, but let's figure out a way, and there's, in couples therapy, there's a lot of things like, what I like that works real well in couples therapy is you have a baton that you have, and whoever's holding the baton gets to speak and nobody else,
Mhm.
and that's a physical thing that they're holding in their hand. It's a real good way of them seeing the boundaries here. They have to, when they have the baton, they can say all they want, the other person can't. And then when it's time for the other person, the therapist will take it back, hand it to the other person. It's just a little thing, but it works really well that way, saying we
Mhm.
have rules here, and the reason most couples fight so much sometimes is they're so busy yelling at each other, they don't hear the other one talk,
Yes.
except the words that trigger them. And then they go back and forth and back and forth. But it's so many times with couples, it's like if they listen to hear each other, then after a little bit, the other person goes, whoa, I didn't know you felt that way. I thought this or that. And he said, no, you never let me finish what I'm trying to say. You jump on something immediately, and the other thing too, that works really good in arguments. This is something business people teach when you're having an irate customer, on customer service. They teach you to, as you're speaking and they're getting really high, then you begin to speak in a lower tone.
Mm-hmm.
You bring it down instead of raising, because we have a tendency to raise to whatever level coming at us and it goes boom, boom, boom. But when they know that that's just going to make it worse, and they're trained to just, take it down a little bit, instead of, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. It's more like,
Yeah.
well, I'm sorry you feel that way. What can we do here? And it's just that tone or something will bring it down, so that you
Mm-hmm.
can talk. There's a lot of little techniques that people learn in business and in relationships that way. So what's a technique that you would recommend when things are getting too heavy and hot? How would you bring it down to
Well,
level?
I do that. I try to stay as neutral as I can in myself, even though I'm getting triggered, and sometimes I have tears coming down because my husband is one that he can look through me if he gets upset. He can get quite angry, and in the past, when he was drinking, he was very, I don't wouldn't call it violent, but yet he was violent with his emotions. And so I can slip back into old patterns. But the one thing that I noticed that I'm working on myself is that I am trying to stay as neutral as I can. That I check in with my intention. What is my intention here? It's not to be better than him. It's just about communication. And the one thing that I noticed that my husband is doing, and I don't know where he got it from, and I'm going to ask him because actually I'm going to say, you know what, babe, I've noticed in the last couple conversations that we had that you're starting to say, this is my perspective and this is how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's been doing that, because it's something new that he's doing, it's catching me a little bit and going, okay. So then now there was something else that once we cleared up what he was feeling, and then if the conversation kept going, then because he keeps sometimes going, and I'm like
Yeah.
going, okay, honey, we're repeating this now, and I heard you, and I want to honor you, but I don't know how to stop this, So with it's going forward. And then what it's triggering me when he says, this is my perspective and this is how I feel, then in another conversation or later in a conversation, that's what I use, so that he respects that too, because of the fact that, when we say, this is how I feel, it's not what I know, it's not what I care about,
Yeah.
it's how I'm feeling. And we all have different perspectives, because we all were raised differently, we were all in these different knowings, that we get these different setups. Like in the last conversation we had, I said, honey, you were brought up in a military family, you were in the military yourself, so there was a 1, 2, 3, this is how you do it,
Yeah.
and this is the only way you do it. And I came from a family where the house was built in the early 1900s, and in order to make things level, you went, let's see how I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And you figured it out along the way. There wasn't this is how you begin it, this is how you finish it. It was a journey on how do you do it. So just in our perspectives on how we get through something is two different ways.
Yeah.
I have the journey, he has the begin it, this is the destination I want to get to, how do I get there? This is this is kind of how I want it to look, because this is the way it might be, and this is the journey on how do I get there, which is sometimes pretty wobbly.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and so with that it's looking at how we come at things differently can really help us figure out how to get through a conversation.
There's a technique I learned in hypnotherapy school that works really well too. Example would be a a wife and children have a husband who's a workaholic, and they love their dad. She loves her husband, but they never get to spend time with him because he's always doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's a loving relationship, but they're feeling neglected and everything because they can't spend time with the person they love. So the good approach is you would go to him and say, sweetheart, the children and I have uh, something we need some help with. We love you so much and we love spending time with you, but you're working so much. We never get to see you and we're feeling neglected. What's your solution, sweetheart? In other words, you put the what's yours and what it's a way of like all of a sudden you're not being accusatory. They know they're loved and you're showing them the issue, and then you say, sweetheart, what's your solution? And then you know it evokes out of him. He's got to think about it for a minute, come back with something. But it's very you don't want to be accusatory and everything. You just want to state the issues and say how this is how we're feeling. We love you,
Mm-hmm.
sweetheart. What should we do about this?
Exactly. How can we come to a compromise in this whole scenario?
Yeah.
So Veronica says, I try to be neutral as well. Sure, it's hard sometimes. Oh
Yeah,
my, I
that's good, Veronica.
yeah, as I can empathize with that so heartedly because I know that it hasn't been always easy. But I can tell you though that there's been times where my husband has even come to me and said, "Honey, you've taught me so much," and I say, "You don't even want to listen to me." No, but you showed me.
Yeah.
You showed me. And that's one thing that the five languages of love has come forward with me understanding that actions speak louder than words for my husband. So that's where sometimes instead of speaking, it's about showing him. And that way then he sees how, not necessarily to do it right. I'm not right or wrong. It's not about me being right or wrong. That's one thing I want to make sure, but it's a way that I can negotiate it so I can survive the conversation so that I don't feel hurt and in pain afterwards as much as
Yeah.
what I could have if we kept down the same story.
Yeah. Another way is the way you phrase questions, and this is used a lot in business and everything when you're trying to get to elicit from the person a yes when they're not actually saying yes or saying no, but it means yes. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah, we talked about that in the car
Like,
one day.
yeah, you would say to your husband, sweetheart, would you be against me telling you my feelings? you know, and he's going to, well, no, I mean, because we usually wanted to say no. He says, oh, and so right there, he said, yes, it's okay for you to,
Just talk
would
about.
you would you be against me telling you what I think we should do this weekend? Oh, no, it's, because, people always, they think a fight's coming on and they always want to say no to everything. So you get them to say no, which actually means a yes. So it's
Yeah.
a little trick there, but it can cool a relationship down pretty good or something. Sweetheart, would you be against me expressing my feelings about this issue? It's just a good way. Another good avenue to go is what my friend Carrie taught me in the 12 years that we were together. And that if she had an issue or anything, she would come to me and touch my arm very gently. She'd say, I have a request, would you be willing to listen? You know, and right off the bat, I'm thinking, what did I do? Okay, but it was very, very kind. And my former wife, who I'm still in love with, and she's my good friend, um, would take me by the hand and take me up to bed and lay down beside me. So we're in a really neutral, comfortable space, you know. And then she'd say, I just had something I needed to talk to you about, okay? Kind of things like that. So it was, I learned so much, and I was so lucky to have these, women in my life that taught me that you don't have to yell and scream in a relationship to get stuff done. Because what do you both want? You just want a solution to where you both feel okay.
Hmm.
And a lot of times that means compromise. You got to have the big C in everything you do in life. If you
Yep.
want to have a relationship, the big C has got to come in there. You can't have it all your way, either of you. It just doesn't
No.
work that way.
No.
So you have to know that what you're going to say, you're going to probably end up with something less than what you would hoped for, but that's as good as it's going to get, and you have to be okay with that.
Exactly, because it is about playing the football game there or the soccer game,
Yeah,
there or a basketball game. It is about being in the middle, and And that's the thing about when we're going through life. I know for me that many times my husband being a double Leo, I'm a double Cancerian and I'm called the moody one.
Yeah.
My double Leo it's an interesting process, and so with that because he's a fire, and he's a roarer, and that kind of thing. So the one thing that I do is I ask him, hey babe, I have a conversation I'd like to have. It's a good one. It's just coming into neutrality with us, and there's just something that I have an awareness of. Can you tell me when it's a good time for us to talk about it?
Yeah.
And can we do it? And sometimes I have to tell him, he says, well, when would you like to do it? Oh, within the next probably the next 5 hours.
Yeah.
So that he knows that there's a journey to this conversation. Because sometimes, when somebody thinks, oh, I'm going to get in trouble, things are happening, they'll put it off and put it off. And so if we're doing that kind of thing. So Katie here, hi Katie. Every time you come on, you ask if there's a reading going to be happening today, please.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did some cards the other day, and I'm hoping that helped you out. So what is it that you would like to have a question about? And if you can just type it in, that would be great. And thank you for coming to my YouTube channel. So I'm going to take this moment. If you are watching on YouTube or on Twitter, can you go to my YouTube channel, Natasha Venter, Angelic Clarifications, and because I don't know if I get comments on my Twitter page. And then wherever you're at, if you would like to subscribe or to get notifications, remember that each system has a way of getting notifications that we're live, because I'm live on Mondays at 4, and we are live Mondays at 4, and then on Wednesdays at 4 Pacific time on the same stations.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And for people that are just tuning in now, I mean, Natasha here, my cohort, is an intuitive medium and very talented, and has helped me and my family and all my friends. And like having, it was funny at the table, we had 12 people, had my friends over there, and just about every one of them you'd helped in one form or another, and they were all glad to see you. And me,
it was grateful for me too.
I help people see the other, get in contact with the other side by having a life between life session where in a deep state of trance, which about 90% of people can reach. You yourself become like a medium in the sense that you see the images like that Natasha sees easily. But a lot of us have to get in this deep state before we can, talk to people and everything on the other side. But it's doable. It is happening now. It's just another way that God's opened up for us to communicate with the other side. So anyway, while she's writing her question now, she's
So
someone
she
that, oh, here
said,
we go.
yeah, she says, oh, I think that might have been another Kate. I think I had a reading a few weeks ago, but not recently. Yeah, when we were on last Monday,
Yeah.
if I remember right, and it was a pink Kate, on that. So I just wanted to communicate. I honestly don't remember, and that's okay, because this morning seems like 3 weeks ago. So I can understand totally how time is being lost. So
yeah. So Kate,
go ahead.
formulate your question, and Natasha would be happy to help you.
Yes. Yeah. So go ahead and could I please have a general reading? Whatever you feel down to tell me, please. Okay, so Kate, since I don't have you sitting right in front of me, I'm going to be honest with you that with me where I'm at with conversation and everything, and it's hard to really tune into, and I use this as a metaphor. If somebody says, can you just give me a basic reading, that is like tuning into the AM station and an FM station of all the stations, if you don't give me some guidelines, and I only have a few minutes to dial into both AM and FM, all radio stations. So if you can kind of give me a little bit of a reference, and that way I could possibly give you a little bit more guidance. And I do kind of get a tendency, but yet at the same time, I want to make sure that I can do you better. So thank you.
Kate, think of all your issues as like a a forest of issues, and some trees in your forest are really giant, and then there's some that are medium trees. There's a bunch of bushes. What are the giant trees right now? Things that you wish you had some answers to. Actually go to your, just go for it. Go for your tallest tree. Is it relationship? Is it something about your work, or somebody some kind of health problem?
Yeah, so
There we
thank
go.
you very much for clarifying,
That helps.
so that it's your career path. Well, okay, so tuning into you, and there was a message that I gave the Kate before, which I know it was you, because you feel the same, that, it was going into a restaurant. I see you going into some kind of restaurant and being maitre d', where you seat people, where, uh, yes, she says that was a great visual, Regan. Thank you. I like that. Thank you, Regan.
Yeah.
That I see you going in there, and with you going in and being a maitre d', it's not that you're necessarily the waitress, but you are one that I feel like you can support the waitresses and the waiters very well. And you become an well-oiled machine, and somebody sees you doing that. And there's actually going to be some people who, because of this restaurant is not necessarily, it's more of a better restaurant. It's not necessarily, it could be something like, I'm going to call it Applebee's or something like that, but there's something that it feels more like an upper scale restaurant, not like $1 zillion restaurant, but it's not just an everyday restaurant that you go in and you do that work, and then somebody witnesses you, and then there's going to maybe be an offer. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that we have like several planets going into retrograde. We have a lot going on in between now and the end of the year. There's also going to be some doors opening that we're going to have some loved ones that are leaving. And so when we have a lot of this transformation going on, that what somebody sees intuitively going for you, that many a times that things don't always work out the way that is foreseen. And I'm going to give that disclosure, but this is what I see for you right now. Okay. And that, so what did you say here? So I hope to be a paramedic and work within the healthcare system field. So that's very different. Yes. And I can understand that, but you also need to have cash now, right? So what I'm seeing is that you have this way of supplementing in. And the wonderful thing about some restaurants, some owners give you the ability to work around your schedule. Okay. And I want you to know that if you're planning on doing that, go for it. I feel like you are a very good person for that. The thing I want you to remember, though, is that I feel like you have a very sensitive button in you. You have a very sensitive emotion in you that may get a little bit triggered. So be careful of how you navigate that future. And Katie, if you really feel like you want to do something like this, I have some tools that I can give you in a personal reading that would help you out, or Regan can help you out with that kind of thing. Because the fact that when you're going into a service department like that, it's very much where having certain tools of taking care of yourself, you can take care of others better. And many of us don't go in with I'm going to call it with tools to be able to be stronger in those moments, and we get beaten down emotionally, and then we don't last as long as we want to. And I feel like that there's an emotional part of you that can get triggered when you see your first person pass, when you go in and you see a child for the first time. And I don't mean to be mean like this or bring these things up, but
Yeah.
this is the evidence of life. And that's where I feel like that you have that sensitive part of you, and having the right tools to go into it, which you can. Like for me, I see things that are beyond what people want to see in people's life, but I have my tools that I can put filters through things so I don't see them in rawness.
Yeah. And
Did I
I'll,
see a filter over somebody who's naked instead of the pure body being there for a metaphor? So if
and
that helps
yeah, and
you.
I want to give you four, Kate, four things to think about, because the work that Natasha and I do, we are around so much emotion, so much pain that people have, that we see people that have had the most horrific things happen to them in their life, and they're trying to figure their life.
A lot of shame and
And
guilt and pain.
when I was on the other side in the life between life session, which I'm doing now for others, I was coming back from the afterlife, and I was looking down. It was like up in heaven, or up in the sky, looking down at the earth, and I was getting closer to the earth. I started feeling all of the pain from the earth. You know, it
Mhm.
was funny because I went from wow, look how beautiful it is, to you know. And my guide was next to me. He said, Regan, if you're going to do this kind of work, I'm going to tell you four things you have to do, because your mind won't be able to handle all of this stuff, and your physical body will get sick and you'll die. It was very
Mhm.
like, and I went, okay, what have I got to do? The first thing is when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is to create an intention. And here's a good little prayer. Bless this day and those I serve today, as I keep one foot in heaven and one foot planted firmly on earth to accomplish my mission of helping other people, of being an EMT. Okay. Did I say that right? EMT,
Mhm.
emergency medical. Okay, right. The second thing, besides, even if it's your angel you talk to, in a sense, if you need to look up, I mean, they're everywhere, but looking up makes you think like, oh, I'm looking up to heaven, and then talk to your guide, even if you don't know who that is yet. Natasha can probably help you with that, or just Angel Gabriel or Jesus or whoever you look up to for help, and just say, look, I'm going to go out there today, and if I'm going to see some accidents, if I'm going to be helping people today, help me to balance myself, help me to do the best I can, and to know what to do for these people that they need. Okay. The next thing is you want to spend more time in nature. They said that God's way of reducing our stress, of being able for us to stay in a good moment, is, go for walks in the park. I don't know what part of the country you live in, or sit and just close your eyes and meditate for a little bit in a beautiful setting, or in, so nature's is really good. And the third thing is, do as many random acts of kindness as you can. Like when you're taking a break from your ambulance or something, and you're walking into a convenience store to get something for a minute, someone dropped a piece of trash. Well, heck, just pick it up, put it in the garbage, even though it's not
Mhm.
yours. It's these little things that just get you in the love mode to keep you balanced. But here's a big one. And the fourth thing is, talk to other EMTs that have been in the business for a long time, and ask them, how do they deal with the extreme emotion and everything that they're around. And hopefully they won't tell you, well, a pint of bourbon and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And that's the
that way.
thing is that, like for me, I work in an elementary school system. And the old person who used to do my work 20 years ago, life isn't like it was 20 years ago. It's like it is today, and it's not easy. And so that's probably why I saw you. I never know why I get the message to give somebody something, but you working in a restaurant, you being a maitre d, can help you get prepped to working with people. And that's part of the service. It's part of the getting you. Can I work with people? Because when you are an EMT, when you're working in the health field of social and that kind of stuff, you're going to be working with people who struggle with life. And if you can work with people in a restaurant situation, you can work with people who are very much in the EMT, the social health department. And it does take tools. So I love what Regan says, because I know for me that many times when, like even before I came on, I went and walked around barefoot in my grass and sat
Oh
out in
yeah.
the sun for a few minutes. And I did do some things out in nature, and it does help me to get more righted, I'm going to say, because it's not about right or wrong for you. And these are just ideas for you, perceptions that we have, Katie, or anybody who's listening, who's wanting to do something. That it's not about getting a right or wrong answer, it's getting righted, like a ship. And so know that every step that you take can get you righted as a ship. And maybe you are ready to jump into the EMT, but if you need to make money now, what can you do to help yourself have finances now, and
Yeah.
then decide whether or not to um, if you can add, like, going to the schooling and doing that kind of stuff around making money, because I feel like that there's something important about you keeping your feet underneath you, Katie, that there is something that you're not one that can handle being it's like for me being a Cancerian, I need a home. I definitely need a home. Wherever I stay, I make it a home. As Regan noticed that I made the energy where I was
Yeah.
at, the energy where I was at. And so I make where I'm at a home, even if it's a temporary home. And so you need those things underneath you to make you comfortable. So do those things to make sure that you have a footing, because I can tell you that Uranus is going to go into retrograde here coming up. Mercury's going to go into retrograde, and there's going to be some things that are going to make us look at our shadows, make us look at those negative things of ourselves. Like for me, I got triggered today. I was supposed to do something today and it got canceled. And then what that did was it triggered a part of me that felt the unworth, the one that things, as soon as I feel success, then things get canceled. And so I had to work through those triggers. So I went and did something else with my business to make sure that I didn't fall back in those old patterns. And that's one thing that these retrogrades do, is they want us to fall back in our own patterns so we can say we're not going to fall back into them like we did before. I'm not going to
Yeah.
be the victim of our life. And so the more tools you get, Katie, the more those things. And I feel like you're on the younger side of life than the older side of life. And so with that as you gain those tools, it will help you do more rounded work. And
Yeah.
so find those tools. It's like Santa gathering his Christmas toys for Christmas. He doesn't do it on the 24th. He does it beforehand together. And so this is the time for you to gather your tools, because I
Yeah.
feel like there's going to be an opening for you in January.
I've had a few run-ins with EMTs. I mean, in a good way. Ambulance times, maybe 3 times in my life, I've had accidents or something. And I have to tell you that these EMTs were so kind and so reassuring and so professional that whatever I was going through, by the time I got to the hospital, I just felt like, well, I thank God I'm in good hands. So what you're doing, so you're becoming a light worker, just like Natasha and I. What we're doing. A light worker isn't just doing this psychic work and me helping people visit heaven and everything. It's about people that are willing to give of themselves to help others. You
Mm-hmm.
know. So bless you for that and being a light worker, because you can be all the difference. You can make all the difference for somebody just by your kind touch.
Mm-hmm.
hmm So I took a break in the meantime to make sure it's definitely the path I want to follow, as well as gaining experience in the meantime. Yeah,
Good job.
yeah,
Good job.
yeah.
Good
And
job.
also to check, I don't know, you might already know this, but I'm guessing there's probably a podcast or what am I thinking, a blog that's about EMTers. And that people that are doing these jobs, and you can interact maybe with some people, or maybe they have an association, or something that helps, people that have your particular, because yours is very unique. There's not that many people on the planet that are EMTs when you figure the amount of people. So you guys are like like a band of brothers, or you're like the medics in the war, you know. Uh, if you haven't watched Hacksaw Ridge, watch Hacksaw Ridge. It's a true story about this man who refused to carry a gun to go into battle, and he was so horribly, uh, you know, uh, treated by all the other soldiers and everything like that. But because of his religious beliefs, he wouldn't pick up a gun, but he wanted to save people, and they finally allowed him to do that. And the ending of Hacksaw Ridge will make you cry for days. It's just what this man did and how many people he saved. But anyway, good movie about someone who wants to help people and be there for them.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's
Hacksaw
not
Ridge.
like I told my husband, who he's a loving pessimist, so, and being in the military, that it's always about what needs to get done next. It's not about Like, if I made a mess in the front room and then I cleaned it up, it's not that he noticed that I cleaned it up, but it was what needs to be done next. And that's his natural. I mean, he grew up in in a military family. He was in the military himself, so it's something that comes to him honestly. I can't fault him for it, you know.
Yeah.
But like I tell him sometimes, honey, my bucket gets kind of empty, and you always looking at what needs to be done next doesn't help me fill up my bucket,
Yeah.
because I need somebody to say, hey, babe, thank you for doing XYZ, sometimes. And so with that, when we're doing good work for a lot of different people, and Regan, you probably feel this too. I love that you've talked about the Enneagrams forever
Yeah.
on this show. And finally, when I was down immersed in your home
Yeah.
for the 6 days, I
Oh,
finally
you
took
took it a
mine.
test, didn't you?
Yeah, and I'm a 9 like you. And so
Yeah.
for us, we are very empathetic, sympathetic for people around us. We're
Hmm.
we're usually the one who says, "Oh, it's okay. We'll just do it,"
Yeah.
But then our bucket gets a little empty,
Yeah.
because we're always doing for others. And sometimes, and that's the thing, Katie, that if you choose to do this, you're going to have to choose a positive way, and hopefully alcohol isn't it, because it's an empty bucket. But
Yeah.
a glass of wine once in a while is not, or a drink once in a while is not wrong. i'm,
Not.
I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. But it's like going out and smelling a rose compared to having a glass of wine sometimes is a whole lot better to fill up your bucket than it is not to fill up your bucket.
And now also another modality, if you in your work have something that's very disturbing and you're carrying it with you home, you want to learn EFT. It's called Emotional Freedom Technique. You can
Mhm.
learn it in about an hour and learn how to do it very efficiently, and it'll be something that'll take the edge off of your of the deep emotion you have. It'll get rid of any excess that's there. This is with my clients that have PTSD. Things of violence. Like I've worked with some law enforcement people, military, but mostly women that have uh, had violence, rape, incest, and just down out violence to them, and it's ruined their lives. Well, with EFT, it's one of the number one things now being accepted in therapy that kind of gets you back to some semblance of normalcy again. So you want to have that tool, and also download the app Insight Timer. Insight Timer. It's a free app, and of these 70,000 people we've helped to go to heaven and back. And while they're over there, they're asking about what's the best spiritual practice to do so that I can kind of keep connected to the other side and be more whole. Every time they say meditation, that seems to be God's gift to us, is helping us to do that. And you'll find people that meditate that have stressful jobs are able to have those jobs with a lot less stress. They're able to see a bigger picture of things, and when they're in the battle, when you're in, say, an accident, people's lives may depend on you, and getting to the hospital in time and knowing what to do in the ambulance before they get there, it'll keep you more calm and collective if you're a meditator, because you're going to be more in the zone and your intuition will be much higher than of what to do. So those are some good tools. So, even if you do a couple of them, it's going to make life better for you, Katie.
Yeah, and I put in the electric energies.com for the
Oh,
Enneagram.
good.
And the one thing that I witnessed is that knowing your type can really help you know how you're going to negotiate the waters that
Mm-hmm.
are around you. And when we go through knowing ourselves better, like our 5 languages of love or our Enneagram number, like knowing that your other half is 2-3, and it really helped. She's about lists, she's about timing, she's about starting this at this time and doing that. And she's also a New Yorker, so she's very much da, 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 da. And so with that knowing that, it gave me the ability to negotiate and respect her way, me being a 9 and being this wishy-washy, easygoing person, that I was
Yeah.
able to step up and respect her timing a little bit different. And then, I took the test for my husband, and he basically told me, no, he's not going to take the test. So
Yeah.
what I took the test of was basically what I got to go off of, because I've been married to him for 30 some odd years. So
You could answer most of the questions.
I can answer 90% of it pretty good. And so with that, then now I know how to negotiate with him in that way.
Yeah,
And
I'll have
so
to see if we can do one of our podcasts. I'll get Patty on, even, and the three of us, we can discuss the Enneagram a little more and the benefits and how it can benefit you, knowing which software God made you with of the 9 types.
exactly,
As
it's just
it'd
another,
be
yeah, it's just
it's
another notification.
another way of knowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, want me to
Hi,
read it?
Mike.
From Manchester, England. Wow, there's a massive research and interest in the death of Diana of England. Oh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
with the release of a 4-part documentary amongst other ones. Do you think the royal family had her bumped off? Now, we know that everybody that's lived is on even if Diana is reincarnated again, part of her's still there. And so, you know, sometimes they'll come through with mediums, sometimes they won't. But I don't know, Natasha, can you give them a little, get any
Okay,
sense
I'm going
of
to be
Diana?
very careful what I say politically correct here.
Okay.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes that is now coming out, because finally people can't hide. There's going to be a lot more that comes out after the Queen passes. I don't think the husband or Charles had much to do with it, but there was somebody in the system that, yes, did have something to do with it. That it was not just the paparazzi. They were yes, involved, but there was something else that happened with the driver, and the timing of things. I'm going to use the timing of things were manipulated. She was too powerful of a woman, and was not attached to the crown anymore.
Somebody wanted to bring her down a couple pegs, and didn't they? When they sure did.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Wow.
They did. They
Okay.
did.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see.
And so with
about
that, yeah. And it's something, it's so sad, because she was another angel that was going to do some positive work in this world. And she didn't have an attachment to it. Who, what, where, and that's not how the system rolled.
Yeah.
And for many centuries, the kings and queens manipulated the world around them. Not saying that the queen was involved, but there was somebody who was behind the scenes with the queen that they manipulated things, because they didn't like what they were seeing, and they took charge of that. So I hope that helps you out. It's a sad scenario. A very wonderful woman who was perfectly imperfect. I'm going to say that she was perfectly imperfect, just as well as a lot of other people, and she just got caught up in the game. She got caught up in the game that wasn't to the benefit. And I think that if it would have happened when her sons are that age, that things would have been that it would have been played out differently. But she was in the old school way at the 20 years ago, or whatever, how many years it was now.
Long time ago now.
Yeah. And so she was in the old school way of doing things, not the new school way where her sons can do things a little bit different. So, so he said, thank you. I love you. So honest. Most agree with you. Yeah. It's a dance that I want to respect and honor the process of what truly happened. And so with that, I'm trying to be very careful how I speak about it, because it was an innocent thing that happened, and not in a good way. And I just want to honor the people that were involved. So thank you for understanding that. So Katie, you had, may I ask another question, or is it one person in the stream? Oops. Where'd you go, Regan? There you are.
Oh, and by the way, Uh, my phone had just said I got like 8% left. If I conk out on you, then I'm gone for the day, because I have my one I can plug into the car, but I don't have one here, and they didn't have one to plug in the wall that fits my cord. So I was hoping my 38% would get me through the hour.
Oh,
So
sorry about
we only
that.
got 5 minutes to go, but if it's something quick, because I think we have 5 minutes left.
Yeah, so Katie, if it's something real quick, like I said, that many times when we're getting into this type of stuff, a private session will
Yeah,
do you better. It will do you better. Have so the previous psychics have told me that a young girl spirit's floating around me. Do you know who she is? Thank you. She was. Did your mom have a miscarriage or a hysterectomy, or I mean, or something that caused an abortion, or something that caused a young soul not to be here in this lifetime? It feels like either a sister or someone um, who has traveled with you. You two spend a lot of times coming into a life. Either you are she's one of your guides, and you have been one of her guides at different lifetimes. So you are in the same soul circle. So with that, since you guys weren't sisters, she played a sister in your life, and yet her soul stays younger because of the fact that that's where she's comfortable, if
yeah,
that helps you out. And she said, whoa. With that, does that, okay, so
yeah. And Katie,
a
in a
miscarriage many years before, but not many people know. I think I was around 5. Yeah. So you were very young and you were meant to be sisters. And that's why you guys have this connection of youngness. So with that, she wants you to remember joy. She wants you to remember to play. And play healthy. If you want to go ride a bike, if you want to skip down the street, she wants you to have fun. She has a fairy like energy to her, which means that she's about having fun and play, and don't get too serious. Sometimes you get too serious in life, so she wants you to be a little bit more playful in your life, in a healthy way, not in a negative way, but in a healthy way.
yeah. And Katie, in a life between life session, if at some point in the future you decide to do it, you can actually go into trance and, in a sense, see her face to face and have a conversation. I've had people, when I've had them on the other side, and these little angels or something would come up and say, "Hey, I almost made it there, Mom, but you miscarried me,"
Mm-hmm.
and she got to see. I know this one. She goes, "Oh, I know it was the girl. I know it was the girl." And it was this little angel that said, because of the miscarriage, she didn't come down this time. It didn't work out as planned. But that
Exactly.
gave her, because she had always, that miscarriage has just been something, is women have, women, when women have miscarriages, some women seem to be okay with it, but others, it's like they lost a living child,
Yeah.
because they have this connection. And so it's bothers them for during their life. So to talk to them on the other side, and just to find out why they didn't make it, or at least to see that they didn't die, that they're still on the other side.
It can
Yeah.
be a little too serious too. Yeah,
She wants you to
exactly.
lighten up.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that I've had several miscarriages, and one was, I was grateful because the my ex-husband I was with, but that's for another story. So there's been some that I knew that the souls needed to move on, and actually one of them was my son now. So sometimes the souls can pop back in later when you know that it's the right timing.
Yeah.
Uh so she says, will I see her in another? Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. And you may be
Oh yeah.
mother, and you might be child. She might be mother, you might be child, you might be father, and she might be mother. It will play out differently every lifetime when
Yeah.
you're together. It's the
Our,
soul
our
dance that you
research,
guys are together.
since at the Newton Institute, we've had 70,000 people go to the other side and back. And what we found is that we kind of have a traveling troupe, like an acting troupe. They're souls that we kind of interact with more than others. And they're our buddies. Something like Natasha was describing, somebody that's close to you, definitely. When it's time for you to leave here, you'll be right back with that soul and planning another adventure. So
Yeah,
don't worry about that. This is just a temporary um,
and
separation.
exactly. And Soul circles, it depends on the person. It depends
Yeah.
on who you are. Soul circles can be smaller. Some circles can be
Some
bigger.
exactly. Yeah. I've had someone on the other side who go to their soul group and it's just a half a dozen. Some of them have so many energies that they're seeing, and some of them are energies that don't come forward to talk to because they're people they're going to meet later in their life. It's like
Hmm.
you have a play and you're in act 5 of your life and they come in act in chapter 7 or 8 or 9,
Yeah.
and so you have this anticipation. A lot of people go, wow, there's going to be these other souls in my group that are going to come into my life. Read Journey of Souls. Journey of Souls or Destiny of Souls. These are case histories. It'll answer a whole bunch of questions you have about the afterlife, taken from all this research that we've done, and
Hmm.
it'll just you'll be jazzed. You
Yeah,
know,
and
I
maybe
mean,
that's another. Maybe we should do a show on Monday about soul families.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so maybe
because there's
that's what we'll talk about next Monday is soul families.
yeah, because when I have people there, if someone's not in the soul group, we'll ask the guide that's there, well, is this person in the subgroup? And a lot of times they'll say yes. And I said, well, can we speak to them? And then they kind of bring them over. So there's soul groups and there's subgroups of subgroups. The bit
S-
players
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly. So
Well, how does that work?
how
So
does
all
it
the
work?
soul circles reincarnate throughout their lives together. How many lives do we have before we cross? How many lives do we have before we cross over? I think what you're meaning is how many times do we reincarnate? It's different for everybody.
It's different for everyone, and it's
Yeah,
different timing for everyone, and it's a different scenario with everyone. It depends
yeah,
on what kind of contract you or what kind of first station you have when you come into this world.
yeah.
And I know that, I can give you an example of my dad and I, but it's time to go here. Because,
Okay.
soul families would be a great. Oh,
Oh yeah,
Veronica, thank you. So we'll do soul families next
that was
week.
fun.
So Katie, come back because a lot
Come
of these
back.
answers that you have right now. So
Yeah.
Monday at 4 o'clock Pacific time, we will be. Regan's phone is going to die here any
Any
second
minute.
now. So we're going to go. So Regan, if you can tell somebody about yourself, and then
Oh
we'll
yeah.
go.
Go to my website, visit theafterlife.com. There's some great videos on there. You can actually watch a video of a young lady going to a past life and then going to the afterlife in this process, and all that she learns and all. It's just amazing there. But there's my books are on there. And there's a free book I'm giving away now about reincarnation. It's called Reincarnation is Real, about all the current research going on to blow your mind. It's a free ebook. If you just go to my webpage and ask for it, I'll email it to you. So tell your friends about the show. Maybe you have a friend that wants a reading or something that you can tell to contact us in the next week. We're here every Monday at 4. And Natasha, you also have your own separate podcast at 4 o'clock on Wednesdays, right?
On Wednesdays, Life Clarifications with Natasha, and that's where I talk about different interactions with, like the other day I was talking about grief and things and changing, and today I'm going to probably talk, or Wednesday I'm going to probably talk about coming into this fall and what I foresee for this fall. Might be one of the conversations I have. So blessings. And if you're interested, also, if you want to listen to podcasts, we have a lot of the old shows of Dance of the Soul um, and Life Clarifications on podcast. If you go to Life Clarifications with Natasha, sorry, Regan, it's part of the dance of the only way I could
Yeah,
sign up. And
yeah.
so with that it's Life Clarifications on. I'm on pretty much all podcasts. I still need to figure out how to get on iTunes. I cannot figure out how to get on iTunes. So with that, the blessings to everyone. Thank you for subscribing,
We will see you
Katie.
next week.
Appreciate it. And love and blessings to everyone. And remember, take a breath before you react so that you can
Yes, take the
interact.
high. We want to take the high road. Like, don't bite back. Real quick, um, picture yourself when someone's throwing bricks at you, and what you're going to throw back is a love bomb. Picture this beautiful little heart that maybe weighs about 5 pounds, but you can throw it thousands of miles if you want. And when they're throwing you bricks, and when you can see this love bomb hit them, and all this unconditional love going all over them, and that'll keep you from that you'll be fun. When you throw love bombs back instead of bricks back, you'll feel their bricks going right over your head, and right
Yep,
over your head, and you
exactly.
won't. Yeah,
Or another metaphor is just that you put those love bombs right in front of the bricks so they don't hit you.
they don't hit you. Yeah.
They
Yeah,
don't
just
hit you.
just
And then
have a white shield and just watch them bounce off, and that'll keep you from reacting in a bad way, because you're slowing your process down instead of just like a knee-jerk reaction. You have a moment to decide, do you want to do in kind and throw a bad brick back, or do you want to let the buck stop with you? Just let it go. Don't throw gasoline on the fire.
Exactly, exactly. So blessings, everyone, and
All
know
right.
that you are meant to be you. And so be love, please. Bye
See you
now.
next week.
See you next week.